This is the Healthy Business Podcast, the show for ambitious business owners who want to grow and scale in a healthy way. I'm Sarah Cook, and I'll be sharing with you tips, inspiration, and proven methods from leading business experts, entrepreneurs, and health and wellness professionals to help you grow your business with more income and having more impact, but in a way that works for you. Because when you have clarity and strategy, you can achieve the results you want. Hello and welcome to the Healthy Business Podcast. Today I am joined by the wonderful Dani Diosi, who is my guest on this episode. We are going to be talking about the power of your subconscious and how we can really utilize that within our business rather than holding us back from the things that we're wanting to achieve. And Dani is, oh my goodness, she is so qualified with over 20 years experience, huge variety of experience. She's a best-selling author. She has worked as a doula. She teaches and trains people to be hypnobirthing practitioners. But she is, well, I guess, has an absolute passion, in her own words, to help as many people and empower as many people to pass on these incredible mindset techniques, hypnobirthing techniques, in a way that really highlights her skill set, but also to do it in their way, in a unique, independent way as well. So Dani, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I can't wait for our chat. I love our chats anyway, but bringing this to the wider world is going to be great. So the one question that I start with everybody on these episodes is what a healthy business means for you. And I would love to get your take on this.
So I have to admit that I think my opinion of this has changed since the time I've been working with you. But a healthy business to me means one that is sustainable. So obviously sustainable from the point of view that you're getting the cash injections and you can make your payments and money coming in, but it's one that means that you can live your life, to do the things that you want to be able to do, to be able to work when you want to, not work when you don't want to, and just really create that balance work-life relationship, rather than it being all or nothing. And also one which, like I've posed, is kind of quite lucky considering doing what we do, but one where you're not feeling panicked and stressed the whole time that you think about work or you go into work or anything arises from work, that it's just part of the process.
It is. I love that. And it comes back to that power of you as well, I think, doesn't it? Like, what do you want? What's the root cause of why you're doing what you're doing? And I love what you were talking about of having, the time and doing things when you want to do it and in a way that works for you, and really bringing that to life, because it is important. None of us have come into business to swap it for another job that is run by other people. We'll come into it because we want to have that impact in the ways that we want to as well. Which I suppose does fit really nicely into actually what you do and how you help people with the power of mind and choosing and beliefs and really being aware of all of those things.
So, I mean, my main business is obviously sort of centered very much around birth and pregnancy. I've got sort of two separate arms of my business. I've got the pregnant client side, where I teach regular antenatal classes, but I also teach hypnobirthing. And all of that is based around choice and information and, what do you want, etc. But I also have the sort of professional training arm of my business as well, which is training professionals, usually perinatal professionals, to utilize the hypnobirthing skills. So either from the point of view they can teach it as another source of income if they work with pregnant clients, set up standalone hypnobirthing courses, but it's also from the point of view of how can they maybe add awareness and enhancement to what they're already doing. If they're a reflexologist or a massage therapist or an acupuncturist or anybody who works with pregnant clients, how can their understanding of the subconscious both enhance their businesses from the point of view of how they really feel about doing things from a sort of a subconscious level, but also how can that help their clients to have a more positive birth experience. So it's not just a straightforward I'll train you to teach hypnobirthing. It's bigger than that. It's much more than that. It's utilizing the power of the subconscious in the mind, which is of course transferable. It's not just relevant to pregnancy and birth.
Yeah, and I love that the fact that you've kind of taken that broader perspective, because actually mindset is everything. And from a business perspective, we can have the best possible strategy, but actually if we don't believe it, if we don't take action on it, if we don't kind of lean into all of those things that are possible, you're never going to achieve that strategy or those goals that you're looking for. And so helping business owners to reframe things with their beliefs and all of the kind of the mindset pieces that is so important. But I love that also translates into them helping their clients. Like this ripple effect that you're creating is incredible.
And the thing is, a lot of I use the word therapist, but anyone who kind of works in the nurturing professions, they're very, very good at giving and sort of giving advice to their clients. But actually, surprisingly, and I can say this because I'm as guilty of it as the next person, or I was, but how little we actually apply that understanding and that knowledge to ourselves. And sometimes actually having somebody present it from a different viewpoint, which doesn't seem indulgent or doesn't seem wishy-washy, then it just kind of switches on light bulbs for people and actually kind of makes them have those aha moments.
Yeah.
And the expansion is huge. And I also think as business women, it's very convenient to buy into a brand, to be trained by a brand and all the sort of sparkly shiny packaging that may present. But actually we could be doing this for ourselves. And I know that was very much my journey. I trained with the brand, I stayed with the brand, but actually there was a limitation to what being in that brand allowed me to do. And I wanted to put my own stamp on it because, like all of us, we're individuals. Even ostensibly we're kind of teaching the same subject matter, but the way we teach it and the way we talk about it, the way it comes across is very, very different. And often when you're sort of committed to a brand, it doesn't give you any space to include your own experience, your own knowledge, the extra information you acquire as you progress and experience. So my thinking was very much when I started the training program back in 2018, specifically training the professionals, was to kind of actually give them a way of being able to bring them, their personality, their experience into what they're giving out. Because as you're always telling us, people buy from people. And that gives them the freedom to kind of express who they are.
I think that's a really interesting point and something I want to kind of delve into a little bit more, because it's actually really tied into that mindset, isn't it? I think that, when people are setting up their own business, it can feel scary. It is often quite scary taking that plunge, doing things for the first time. You're suddenly wearing all of these hats. And I think a lot of people kind of lean into having that security of, oh, well, if I go with somebody that is recognized and trusted, that's actually going to be easier for me because I don't have to think about that. Whereas actually very quickly, and as you realize too, that there's so many limitations with that. And actually, in some ways, you're working for a different company. You're not actually working for yourself because you're having all of these restrictions placed on you of, what materials look like, how you have to deliver things. And you kind of lose that flexibility, that freedom of choice, which is what you started your business for in the first place.
But ironically, you're still doing exactly the same as if you were doing it for your own business, because you still have to be the one that gets out there in front of potential clients. Yes. You are still the one that has to network with local providers who work perhaps in a similar field to you. You're still the one that actually has to do the social media for you as an individual. Yes, the brand might be doing it, but your average Joe Blogs doesn't know that you necessarily work for that brand. And actually, they don't look for a brand. They look for something, for example, in hypnobirthing, they look for hypnobirthing near me, just like they would for a reflexologist near me or an acupuncturist near me. Yeah. So it's
And
it's a bit smoke and mirrors, really. I mean, I can
yeah,
understand that belief, and it feels like
yes.
a security blanket, but at the end of the day, you're doing exactly the same thing. It's
And you
just
might as well do it for yourself and create your
might
own
as well.
brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And have that flexibility and have that independence of how you choose to do things, tone of voice, and all the rest of it. Because as you rightly said, people buy from people.
Yeah.
And that emotional connection is built with you as a person. The referrals are going to come through to you as a person. And yeah, it's really, so if we kind of think about that from that mindset and belief perspective, where does that come from? Like, is that something, because a lot of beliefs come from, our childhood, right? Of what we're told, and that creates the neural pathways, and that plays out so much in everything we're doing within business and the decisions we make.
And that's the thing. I was actually talking to a group last night about it was a corporate group. So it was very different from obviously kind of my day job, if you like, but the principles are still the same. What people don't realize is that a lot of, as you said, a lot of what we believe is there. It's been there for many, many, many years. It has taken however many years old we are, for those beliefs to become embedded and embedded and embedded. And as you say, those neural pathways are very firmly there. So often when we kind of have a visceral reaction to something, like getting out there and doing a video on Instagram, or talking to a group of people, or actually asking for payment. This is a big thing, especially when you're in the nurturing profession.
Yeah.
There are that many years of sort of preconditioning, which makes us feel bad about it. So it's not actually our fault. It's not anybody's fault. What does make a difference is that awareness of how the subconscious works, what has gone in there. And once you become aware, once you have that level of awareness, then you can start implementing changes. You can start telling yourself a different story. And it's not easy, because the subconscious is always going to take the path of least resistance. And in the case of years and years and years of preconditioning, that is the path of least resistance, because it knows what it's doing. It's familiar. It really is better the devil you know. So it does take a bit of work to try and sort of change that story and reframe those thoughts. But once you start doing that, again, the subconscious likes to sort of latch on to familiar things. So for example, if you know that you're going to buy a particular make or model of car, suddenly that's all you see. And they haven't just sprung out of the woodwork. Production hasn't just kind of stepped up just for you individually. That's what is uppermost in your mind. So your subconscious latches on to kind of more and more proof that, oh yeah, look, this is a good car because that person's driving it and that person's driving it. So once you start giving your subconscious positive things to focus, or a new direction to focus on, it's going to start becoming more aware of the other signs and clues and pathways out there that kind of leading you down that much more positive path. But awareness is the key, and being aware of how your subconscious works and what might already be in there. I mean, I'm not saying we need to, really delve deep into our subconscious, because, that is work potentially for an actual therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist. But just catching yourself at your limiting beliefs. Oh, I'm no good at this. Oh, I'm rubbish at that. No one's going to buy that from me. No one's going to want to work with me. Actually stop that in the tracks and tell yourself a different story, which will increase your confidence, your outlook, your mindset, everything that you need to really make a success of what it is that you're doing.
I love this stuff. And I think even this morning I caught myself saying something and I was like, hang on a second, why am I thinking this? And I think however much you know about this kind of work and you're, being aware of things, firstly, you can catch yourself a lot sooner rather than kind of delving into that sort of spiral. But I think also when we know that that's going to happen, and actually as we continue to grow, as we continue to try new things and push ourselves, especially within business, we're always going to get these little mindset monkeys that are going to come up for us and pop up and say, oh, hang on a second, because as you say, our neural pathways like to take the path of least resistance. So whatever is embedded and you can do the surface layer, it's almost a never-ending game, isn't it? And I think what I love about what you do is that you help people create this toolbox for themselves when they're learning about these hypno techniques. You choose to use those within the hypnobirthing world and support that, but actually these are really relevant for all of us. And you're right, especially as women, where traditionally we are in those nurturing, caring roles, especially within business. Whatever that looks like, we're in that space. But we can also be the most self-critical and most analytical about things. So we need to have this toolbox. All of us need to have this toolbox.
We were laughing last night because, someone was complimenting somebody else's hair or their clothes or whatever, and the other person was going, oh no, this, oh rubbish, no, I just haven't had time to do this. And actually that's a perfect prime example of how powerful conditioning is, because our conditioning as women generally is that we need to be modest. We need to sort of be self-effacing. And that's like generational. That's not just necessarily our age group, our generation that's dealing with that. But that is pre-conditioned. And so it is a natural response to downplay the fact that we might actually look really nice that night, or downplay our successes because it's not considered feminine or ladylike, or just what we do. It's like I don't know how many people have seen the Barbie film, but there's a speech that America Ferrera says when she says it is literally impossible to be a woman because you have to be this, but you can't be too much, and you can't be that, but you're expected to.
Brilliant.
That's conditioning. That's our subconscious. We can tell a story,
and we do, and we tell it all the time, don't we? And I think it's as you know, as part of the mastermind, one of the things that I get everybody to do at the beginning of every call is to share something that they are celebrating, that they are wanting to, share with other people, something that's happened that week. And it's fascinating when I do this within other groups and they're like, oh, I'm not celebrating anything. And I'm like, but if we tell ourselves we're not celebrating anything, well, then we stay in that space. Whereas if we start looking at what we are celebrating, even if it's just the fact that you've created space to be here to listen to this podcast today, that's a win. And the more we look for those wins, it's a bit like looking for that validation with the car that you've just bought. Our brain starts looking for those positive validations, but it can very easily look for those negative validations as well. So if we can condition it to keep looking for those positive validations, it makes us more productive. It makes us more efficient and effective with our time. We enjoy what we're doing a lot more. And I think that can have the ripple effect within our business, within our clients, but outside of that as well, within the lives that we're living too.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's so, it's so easy. Another example I'm always giving is, when you wake up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah.
You trip over the cat when you get up in the morning and you can't find your shoe, and the butterfly in your earring falls out and you can't wear the earrings you wanted to, and you burn the toast, and then you miss the train, and you just decide, well, this is going to be a terrible day. Yeah. And so everything else that happens that validates the fact that this is a terrible day, and it just makes you feel more and more rubbish, even though there's kind of that satisfaction, like, you see, I knew it was going to go wrong because I'm having one of those days. What you don't see in those circumstances is actually the sun started to shine when you came out of the house, or that your colleague made you a cup of tea, which was exactly the right color, amount of milk, sweetness, that they were doing a 2-for-1 offer in Boots when you went to pick up your skincare. And we are negatively wired. So it is much easier to see when things are going bad rather than acknowledging when actually things are going good. And if you do trip over the cat when you get up in the morning, you tripped over the cat. The cat probably came off worse than you did. It's not the end of the world. Look for something positive. If something negative happens, try and match it with the next positive thing. it isn't easy to do. It does require work, especially when the concept is new, but actually over time it becomes more natural. Like for example, gratitude. I don't write things down. I don't keep a gratitude journal, but every time before I go to sleep, I say I'm grateful for, and even if it, even if I didn't make £1 million that day, or a designer handbag didn't fall into my lap, I'm grateful for the fact that I had the opportunity to speak on Sarah's podcast. I'm grateful for the fact that I really enjoyed my dinner tonight. And those little things add up, and they change the outlook. They change the subconscious's perception, so that you're not just looking for how rubbish you are at something. You're actually starting to notice, oh, look how far I've come. Look what I actually have achieved.
I think it's such an interesting one. We're talking about gratitude, because sometimes people can think it's, a bit woo woo, or what's the point in that, kind of doing that on its own? Like, how does that have the real impact to create the things we're wanting to within our lives, within our businesses? But actually, for me, it comes down to this sort of habit stacking. Like, the more we do it, the more we look to do it, the more we start noticing the positive things. And that's really when we start creating that ripple effect. It's not about doing it once and then never doing it again, or doing it once and we've therefore recreated this new neural pathway. It's about that consistency, I think, isn't it?
And that's why I think the giving it context, scientific context is so important. And I come across this all the time when I'm talking about hypnosis for birth. And we talk about affirmations and reframes and things like gratitude. And it does sound woo-woo. I mean, when I open the door to clients coming in, I've usually spoken to the woman. She's the one that's kind of booked the course. But the partners, usually as I open the door, they kind of look me up and down to make sure that I'm, not wearing
some kind of crazy hippie lady.
Absolutely. And sort of waving incense in their face. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But there is a
preconception around hypnobirthing, I think, isn't there? Or there used to be. I think it's definitely shifting.
I think so, but there's still anything that is kind of maybe not considered mainstream. And obviously, as you're saying, affirmations, gratitude, all of that kind of would come under that woo-woo. But it's actually understanding the science. So I always approach it from talking about what the subconscious consists of, how the subconscious forms its frames of reference as we grow older, how a lot of, as you mentioned, these limiting beliefs or societal beliefs or cultural beliefs, or whether you're afraid of dogs or not, happens when you're young, really up to the age of about 7 or 8, because kids are permanently up until that age in a subconscious state because of the amount of information they absorb. So once you've got that understanding, that provides the scientific context and framework, and then it's much easier to explain that things like affirmations or gratitude are working on the basis of something called an idiomotor response. So what that is basically is a mind-body connection. The mind and body work as one. If you think something in your mind, there is a physiological response. The best example is if I start talking about head lice. If I talk about it enough, you're going to start scratching your head. You don't have head lice. I hope you don't. But the thought of it creates that itchy response. Sometimes somebody can say something that's particularly emotional or maybe quite alarming, and you get goosebumps. We've all had that moment when somebody is talking about something and there's that
little shiver.
There's that little shiver, or your hairs actually stand on end. That is because of an idiomotor response. You think, the body reacts. So once you give it that context, it's then not such a huge leap into understanding why looking for the things to be grateful for, to be thankful for, actually sort of creates that much more openness in our understanding how the subconscious is primed to work, which is seeking more and more evidence of what it knows, gives it context that you are going to notice the more and more positive stories or positive opportunities if you're in that positive frame of mind. So it's not such a leap from somebody being very is it right brained, which is more academic? I don't know my left from my right, so you know what. You know, one way to somebody corporate, say for example, suddenly doing affirmations and gratitude, because there is kind of scientific evidence that it's not mind over matter, it's actually mind creates matter, which,
and even that in itself, that reframe of understanding that, as you say, is based in science, of actually whatever we're thinking has a direct impact on our actions. And I know, and obviously, you know, this affects everybody, and that's why I wanted to kind of preface this sort of chat around, actually our subconscious is so driven by, or you know, our belief system is actually so intrinsic in the results that we can create within business. But I also want to kind of delve into, because obviously you work with, you know, people who work in the sort of perinatal space, and they're supporting, you know, their clients who are pregnant, and the impact on that, because actually those people who run those businesses, understanding this hypnobirthing techniques and having their own toolbox is going to have a huge impact on them running their own business. But actually, I think, again, there's a preconception that if they're training and learning in hypnobirthing and teaching that, or that they have to teach that, actually you can learn this to support yourself and, you know, create massive impact within your own business and yourself, regardless of whether you're actually going to go on and teach this to your clients.
Exactly. I mean, hypnobirthing is simply using elements of hypnosis and positive mindset tools and relating it to giving birth. But it could be hypno business management, or you know, hypno reflexology, or hypno positive thinking. You know, it's taking or harnessing the incredibly suggestive nature of the subconscious when you are in a relaxed state of mind, and being able to, as I said, change that story, tell a different story, create sort of future proof of, we call it in hypnosis, we call it future pacing, which is kind of, and I know that lots of sports athletes use that to kind of envisage themselves, you know, winning that race, or getting that goal, or you know, whatever.
Visualization is huge, isn't it? It makes such a massive impact.
Absolutely, because and when you are giving those visualizations, whatever they might be, when someone is in that relaxed, hypnotic, suggestive, subconscious state of mind, we don't have that interference from our thinking brain, which is known as the conscious criticism, which is the bit that's going to go, nah, that's just a load of woo-woo rubbish. It just accepts the suggestion, as long as, and this is, you know, another kind of important look at what we're doing, it doesn't go against your moral code.
Exactly. So important.
Come into it, you know, are your goals aligned with what your values are? And the way that you check that is there, I'm going to get this word muddled, is congruency in every part of your body. Do you feel aligned? Does it sit comfortably? If there's that, you know, that sort of really, I don't know, just incongruent feeling, if something just doesn't feel right, the chances are you need to look for a different goal. And it might just be, it just might be reframing that goal, or you know, aiming it in slightly a different direction, because it's got to fit with who you are as a person in order for it to sit comfortably, literally.
And if we take that from, you know, the ripple effect that can create on perinatal clients, so those that are going through that pregnancy and kind of into labor, and like let's talk specifically a little bit around those clients who people who are working in the perinatal space, or even if they're considering working in that space, because you might have pregnant clients but actually not really feel like you're able to support them or confidently support them in a full way that you would love to understand and have that knowledge, have that awareness. How does your hypnobirthing training help with that?
So it's an understanding that people who are going through the, I guess, even from the fertility, the conception, pregnancy, birth, and early parenting journey are doing it in a culture and a society that fundamentally does not support the physiology of birth, does not support the woman's physiological ability to birth her baby. And by that, I mean, we look at it, we as in society looks at it as a condition, pregnancy as a condition, an illness almost, where something is going to go wrong. If it doesn't go wrong, well, that's lucky. But the expectation is that it will. And this is a generational thing. This is not something that has just started to happen. We're talking centuries. We could, this is almost another whole podcast on its own, but going back to kind of the beginning of time when women were supported by women, and then when religion came into, everybody's way of life, the women were seen as threatening, certainly the women that attended births, and men felt, this is not man bashing, this is man in general, felt threatened by it. The women that used to support the women in labor were burnt as witches. Medicine was only open to men to practice. Then you have the Industrial Revolution, where everybody was considered a machine, and a woman was literally seen as a dirty, and these are not my words, dirty, malfunctioning version of a male. And that is how they were treated. And a lot of the fear around childbirth stems from that time. There was a lot of death in childbirth, both from the mother and the baby, which actually wasn't because of the mother and the baby. It was because of a serious lack of understanding of hygiene, and the doctors spread the disease. But, as we became more modern, more and more technology was invented to prevent these issues. And, obviously bring it into modern society, and we've got the added, or doctors and midwives have got the added fear factor of being sued. So it is, and the way they're taught as well, they're taught on basically disembodied torsos, which is basically from chest to vulva. That's it, maybe the top of the thighs if they're lucky. And that is where they deliver the babies from, which are often just a head. It's not attached to a baby. So it bears no resemblance to an active, moving, breathing, shouting, living woman doing what her body is physiologically capable of doing. And that creates fear. It has created fear. It's created generations of fear. A lot of how our mothers gave birth to us impacts on our thinking of fear, thinking of birth, how we see it on television, how it's portrayed in soap operas, or even in birth programs such as One Born Every Minute or Emma Willis Delivers Babies. We watch it for the drama. How taught about it, and all of this is years and years and years of embedding and compounding, because you see it again and again and again and again, therefore that must be true. So ultimately, pregnant women and their partners are scared, and that fear controls everything. There is also the ability that humans have, which other mammals don't have, because of our neocortex and our thinking brain. We what if, and we prophesize, and we catastrophize. So the difference between, say, a chimpanzee who is pregnant, if she is pregnant and she loses her baby, she will grieve, she will mourn, okay, she will maybe try and take another baby to kind of replace what she's lost. Her feelings are, we can relate to them. But what she doesn't do is spend the whole of her pregnancy catastrophizing that this is going to happen, whereas humans do. And if there's that sort of iota of doubt that's introduced, it's like, well, what if I decline this? I could be putting my baby's life at risk. And that's the message that's being given. So pregnant families are dealing with fear. And because the subconscious, that's all in the subconscious, because the subconscious is ultimately there to save your life and keep you safe from anything that it perceives to not be okay, that's always going to take over any logical thought. So even someone in an antenatal class, when I'm talking to my antenatal clients and I'm saying, oh no, if you just breathe, that's going to make contractions easier. If you just move around, the pelvis opens more. Your baby will tell you when you'll tell your body when it's ready to be born. It makes sense. They understand it. But when, if you'll excuse the pun, push comes to shove, the subconscious takes over, and it just, causes this kind of this tension and the fear. So what the toolkit of training to teach hypnobirthing, or training in hypnobirthing, provides is a way of changing that subconscious messaging. So giving the subconscious new beliefs around birth, new memories, by creating sort of these future pacing, these visualizations of what birth possibly can look like, or how you're going to feel during the process, and giving new learnt behaviors, new learnt responses to triggers that might potentially have previously caused fear. So, previously thinking about contraction makes you tense up. Now, when you think about a contraction, you concentrate on breathing out and relaxing your muscles. And that has proven to reduce the length of labor, to lower the risk of intervention, to lower the need for pharmaceutical anesthetic or analgesia. And babies tend to they score higher on their APGAR scores, which are kind of visual checks that the midwife will do when the baby's born, because it allows the hormones to do the job that they're designed to do. And I'm not saying that if every woman did this, every woman would have the most straightforward, unmedicalized birth, because that's not what some people want. Some people actually, they choose to have a cesarean, or they're happy to accept an induction, or to them the epidural is the goal. And that's fine. I'm not having these babies. The people I teach aren't having the babies for their clients. It's up to the client. But what I'm enabling these perinatal specialists to do is be able to give their clients a toolkit. And then it is up to the client to be able to access those techniques, those skills, those tools to help keep them calmer, more positive and more confident throughout their birth, however they end up having their baby. Because ultimately, and this is something that I should probably get printed on a t-shirt because I say it so often, the birth is not the end of something. It's the start of the rest of their lives as parents. And if they're starting from, back there, running on empty, depleted from energy, hormones, physically and emotionally damaged, that is not a good start to parenting, and it's going to impact on every single parenting decision and experience that happens from there on in. So there are many ways that perinatal specialists, therapists, practitioners, anyone who works with pregnant clients can use these tools, both from themselves, from a business point of view, but also to just give their clients that extra level of information and support and skill set to navigate the twisty, bumpy road that labour can be.
I love how much information you shared there. I love the passion that you have. I think it's a really useful conversation to have, though, and I think it's, there's so much expectation. As we said, right at the beginning, that we're hardwired to look for negativity. As humans, we look for drama. We only need to look on the media for that, like all of the TV programs, all of the the EastEnders moments, right? Like the dun 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 moment. It's always a point of drama. Like we're wired to kind of go, oh, I want to, intrigue. That's the bit that our brain wants to latch onto. If we have the smiley, happy, positive stuff, like we never hear about, great birth experiences. We always hear the hard, the tricky ones.
When we do, so there was a recent, I don't know if you're aware of it or any of the listeners are aware of it. There was a recent interview with Fern McCann, a TV reality star, on This Morning, and she was talking about how wonderful her home birth experience was, and how positive it was, and how she felt so incredibly empowered, and she just felt her body took over, and it was like she wasn't necessarily involved in it at all. She got slated by people saying she's giving unrealistic expectations. It makes everybody else feel bad. You can't win.
That goes back to that narrative of the Barbie situation, right? As a woman, we can think this, we can say this, but whatever we're going to do, there's always going to be somebody who has a different opinion. And I think what I love about the hypnobirthing tools, whether you choose to use them and teach other people, or actually it's more from a personal usage perspective, is that we get to choose how we hear that narrative. We get to choose how we react to that narrative. We get to choose the beliefs that we have, because we know, and as we've said several times during this, that our mind and body are so interconnected that whatever we're thinking is and does have a direct impact on the actions that we're taking. And I think and hopefully as you've been listening to this, you can see the impact of our thoughts, the impacts of our beliefs, not just whether you're working with pregnant ladies in your businesses, or whether you're pregnant yourself, or even if you're not in that space and you're just a female and listening to this and running your own business. Whatever we're thinking has a direct impact on our results. The power of our subconscious, we get to choose whether that works with us or whether that gets to work against us. I feel like we could talk all day on this. There's so much gold. Where can people find you if they're like, oh my goodness, I need to connect with the wonderful Dani?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm Mama Serene Birth Training. I'm on LinkedIn as Dani Diosi, I think. That's definitely my name. I can't remember. And LinkedIn, and obviously my website, which is www.mamaserene.co.uk, and then all my contact details are on there.
Amazing. And we'll make sure all of those links go into the show notes. But you've helped so many people, both from a business perspective, from a personal perspective, going through their own pregnancy journey, and helping people in between that are now helping other people in their pregnancy journey too. And you teach people how to become hypnobirthing practitioners. You have your own antenatal academy, but also you have a wonderful book that we haven't even touched on today, which is all about hypnobirthing. And I know you also have an amazing course that is pretty much coming out around mindset, whether you're in business, whether you're in the perinatal space, or whether you just want to learn a little bit more about how you can really support your own subconscious and be the best version of yourself. Dani, it's been amazing as always to chat to you. Thank you so much for joining me on the Healthy Business Podcast. I'm Sarah Cook, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Healthy Business Podcast. You can get a copy of my best-selling book, Healthy You, Wealthy Business, over on my website, sarahcookcoaching.com/book. In there, you'll find practical advice, useful tools, and real actionable steps to help you be your best self and build a wildly successful business with ease, so that you can create a limitless life in the way that you choose.